Hello and welcome to The Big Picture. One of the less celebrated aspects of the last 10 years or so, as far as the Indian economy goes, was the revival of the agriculture sector. The increased production and higher prices for farm produce has resulted in higher rural incomes. This had resulted in farmers' rising incomes with minimum support price reaching unprecedented levels. Even as farmers' suicides in different parts of the country were being reported, the agricultural exports had zoomed from 7.5 billion US dollars in 2003-04 to $42.6 billion in 2013-14. However, it's being predicted now that this agricultural prosperity may come to an end. This is because of the steady slide in global crop prices, abundant inventory, among other reasons. It is said that the declining global prices of agricultural commodities is having its impact on India also. If it does, what are the measures which are necessary to safeguard our agricultural sector and farmers in particular? Is it possible to soften the impact? This and many other questions need a debate. To discuss this, I have with me a distinguished panel of guests: Sompal Shastri, former Union Minister for Agriculture; Ajay, former Secretary of Ministry for Industry and Commerce; Tajamul, Haque, former Chairman Commission for Agriculture Costs and Prices; and Krishan Chaudhary, President Bharatiya Krishak Samaj. Welcome to all of you. Mr. Ajay, I would like to come to you first because they're talking of what is happening at the global level. So is this something a recent phenomenon?
Yes, I would say it's a phenomenon of the last 18 to 20 months. We have seen decline in agriculture prices of most products. Even the media in India may not have picked up this story as till recently, about a month ago or so. But there have been reports to this effect in international journals, etc., about the falling prices. And I think to say that I would say it's been underreported, let me put it that way, but certainly there has been a perceptible decline in the last year and a half.
The reasons for it, Mr. Haque, the reasons for this decline. Because there are also theories floating around that there is some kind of a conspiracy internationally to bring down the prices.
I think you have come to the real point, it looks. The point is overall, normally it should depend on the demand-supply situation globally, and also some local conditions will be there. But some of these things have become more active in recent times than before for various reasons. They want to control the international market, so they want to do all kinds of things. This is one. Second thing is...
They means who?
There are cartels, there are corporates, there are agencies which have a vested interest in that. Second thing is, in the case of India particularly now, I should say not that all agricultural commodities have been declining. For instance, in the case of fruits and vegetables, still the prices are quite high. So far, I don't see much sign. In the case of onion, in the case of tomato is still, as on today, this is the season. And then we are still purchasing, at least in the retail markets, 25 to 30 rupees per kilo. So this is unprecedented, I should say. It's high, on the higher side. So this is not crushed. In the case of rice particularly, basmati rice, I think.
Rice, wheat
to some extent.
Soya,
also.
Corn, oil seeds,
palm oil, cotton, all these things seem to have...
Yeah, palm oil, if it is happening, it is going to be good for us. Anyway, we are importing.
Because we are huge importers.
You are huge importers, and our import bill that way will come down. So India, as a country, probably will not be losing so much from the present kind of scenario that we have. And secondly, if you talk about our farms sector, farmers no doubt respond to price changes. But normally what we have seen, see the case of potato. Like farmers, get only 5 rupees to 6 rupees a kilo for potato, whereas we pay 30 rupees or 35 rupees a kilo today. So the gains of all this kind of changes that take place or benefit mainly the trading class or the speculators, not really so much the farmers. And as a result, in both times, when the prices are internationally high, then also we have seen we have not been affected so much. And also, accepting some of the commodities. Like we had a plan to diversify from, say, rice wheat system to, say, basmati rice, for instance, and maize also. And if maize prices are crashing, basmati prices are crashing, and our farmers lose, because particularly in the case of basmati rice, it is exportable commodity.
Right.
And in the case of maize also, we export to our neighbors, because, for instance, Bangladesh and there are countries which import from us. So that way, in those respects, I think we are going to lose to some extent. But on the whole, I think there will not be much problem, at least immediately.
Mr. Shastri?
Yeah, please.
Mr. Shastri, you know, would you agree that in the last 10 years, agriculture has been on the upward trend in this country? And if this happens, what will be the impact? If these global prices crash, what will be the impact?
Agriculture has not been on the upward trend, virtually speaking, in the sense that we are experiencing a serious imbalance in the production composition. On one hand, the elite grains, rice and wheat, are continuously overproduced. But
overproduced, and we have these huge stocks of them.
that's right. That is the implication. Huge stocks, and which carries, which implies some cost, and cost to the society, whosoever bears it, the government or the taxpayer pays it, or whosoever pays it. Secondly, pulses and edible oils are being continuously imported, and this is a long standing story. So a huge correction is required to change this composition, and this cannot be changed through the sermons rendered to the farmers, produce more, because farmer has always been sermonized to produce more. Whenever he produces more, whether of perishable goods or other things, then the prices tend to crash, and he is not realizing even the cost, and his profits are squeezing, because cost curve is rising at a faster pace than the price realization, which we call as the terms of trade within agriculture, and then terms of trade as compared to other commodities. It's a long story. My point is that more important for us is how to address the situation, how to tackle the situation. One is that pulses and edible oils, which we are continuously importing through foreign exchange, those can be produced in India, but it needs a price adjustment. MSPs have to be raised in a fashion that these commodities also become productive. Then there are certain logistic problems, like not a good variety of pulse available. And then pulses are very palatable to the wild animals like the nilgai. So all those areas which produce pulse are invaded by the blue bull, and there is a policy which the government refuses to take decision on. So this is costing us very heavy. Secondly, in the recent collapse, the report which we are referring to today's Indian Express and Financial Express, mainly 3-4 commodities have been more adversely affected. One is the soya bean, which affects the interest of, because soya bean, particularly the soya meal, is exported in large quantities, so it would definitely affect the economy of the farmers in the central part of India, particularly Madhya Pradesh. Secondly, rice. I am a personal victim. Last time I sold my 1121 long grain rice basmati for 4,500 to 4,800. This time the price is 3,000. 1509, another high-yielding basmati variety, last year was selling at 3,500. The recent realization is only 2,300 to 2,600 maximum. So these would be affected.
Also wheat. Wheat also seems to have...
Wheat, I have a different opinion. You see, there are certain varieties of wheat which only India produces. And I would like to reiterate this, particularly the high-protein durum wheats, which we call in common parlance as sharbati, produced by Madhya Pradesh, and katia and those things, which are not produced anywhere else in the world of this quality. Government should have, on the tune of, on the pattern of the rice, the elite rice exported freely, they should open it freely. They have fixed a certain price, which does not mean anything. See, they should open this window, and this will shift the acreage to those qualities, and we will earn foreign exchange.
Sorry to intervene. One of the problems seems to be, according to the reports which we have read, is that the international prices have come down to such an extent that it is no more economical for people to export, because the prices within India is more than
that's what I am telling.
That is true.
That where we are deficient, we should shift the acreage to those crops and raise their MSP so as to make it profitable for the farmer to grow. And where we are producing continuous surplus, resulting in glut, a perennial glut, that production has to be a bit brought down, and this can be done through price mechanism only. It cannot be done through only Upadesh with the government.
Mr. Krishan Chaudhary, you being the president of the Krishak Samaj, Sompal Shastri is talking about Upadesh. You know, you think that the farmers have got a lot more Upadesh than actual help which they need?
The need of the hour is to increase the productivity, as well as if we see the global market trend, the price declining is due to heavily subsidized by the developed world. And it's a game of agribusiness corporations to damage the food security of country like India. We have two examples. One of the oil seed, already we are importing more than 60% plus. Another example, the hot crisis presently the sugarcane farmers are facing, how the raw sugar were imported and it was flooded in the market, and the sugar produced from Indian sugarcane couldn't sold in the market. It's a big problem, and the present time, the sugar industry is not ready to crush in time. This is the peak hour when sugar industry should start, but they are not going to start.
Why are they not going to start?
The stock is heavily, they are having lot of stocks of sugar is there, and the payment of the last year arrears is still the 20 rupees per quintal. They have not paid from the whole season, and up to the March, hardly up to the March they have cleared the payment. These are the problems of market problems.
These are market problems, these are also the problems of administration.
Yeah, administrative problems also and political decision also.
Right.
Once the government of India paid the money to make the areas clear to farmers, and they used that money, they diverted that money, more than 700 crores rupees in the name of development, so and so, and it's not good. The money was given to make the clear areas of the farming community. And I agree with the Sompal ji and Dr. Haque that we should divert our system, especially for the oil seed and pulses sector. But the big problem, which Sompal ji raised, that blue bull is a big problem, big threat. In a day, in a night, in a single night, the whole fields removed of the pulses, especially the arhar and moong, urad. These are the problems.
No, Mr. Chaudhary, yes, Mr. Shastri.
See, the ramifications of the recent price collapse, as I stated earlier, has affected these 3-4 crops more. Rice, soya bean, rubber, and also sugar.
Sugar.
So, sugar is a very important issue in the sense what Mr. Krishan has already said, that in spite of us producing more sugar than we require, we were importing sugar in raw form, and that created additional glut, brought the prices down, and since the prices are now below 30, realized by the mills at the mill gate, they are not in a mood to crush and pay 350 demanded by the farmers, or even 305 which was paid last year. Their economy does not work out. So it's a policy issue. So what do they...
So from what you're saying, am I right to conclude that this global prices crashing is not the result of is not affecting the sugar
it is affecting because import is becoming cheaper and more economic, therefore it is affecting.
Okay.
And so government should have a policy. Secondly, on the WTO form, when we said that we have somehow bought the peace clause, we discussed it on several occasions with you also in this chamber. The issue is that those countries are still subsidizing their agriculture through various routes.
Exactly.
And somehow very intelligently and very surreptitiously introducing the boxes or changing the boxes from the amber box to the blue box to the green box. But somehow, you see, take the case of OECD countries. When WTO negotiations started and the final act was signed in 1995, then the subsidy by OECD countries was around 38%. Now it is about 44%. So instead of cutting down on subsidy,
it has gone up.
So their farmers' incomes, simply putting it in simple man's language, almost about 40% of their incomes come from the governmental payments.
Subsidies.
So how do we compete? And we are. So it's not free, fair or equitable yet it was envisaged to be, it was held out to be.
Mr. Dua,
so that is the problem.
I mean, this is a serious thing which you must have handled that when you were in the ministry. This whole WTO thing, Mr. Krishan Chaudhary is talking about some kind of a conspiracy, if you want to call it that, of the developed countries against the developing countries. Would you agree with that? Is there such kind of a thing which can happen under the WTO regime?
I don't know whether it's a conspiracy or a cartelization, what you call it. But the fact of the matter is that it is there. And there is no denying that just because their pockets happen to be deeper, that they are able to subsidize their farming sector for whatever purpose. Whether it certainly is not to support a large population, because the extent of people in farming there is very small.
Yeah, exactly.
Whether they are in a position to support the government through election donations, etc., something which we've been surmising for a long time. The fact of the matter is that we have stood out in the WTO, in the eyes of the OECD, as the bad boy not wanting to have this particular
to fall
deal.
In line.
But it is an issue for us. It's an issue of livelihood for us. And it's an issue, I would say, more than livelihood, it's an issue of commitment. When we joined in 1995, at that point of time, it was clearly made known to us that we would be revisiting this green box, what goes into it, and it will be open, that discussion. But we've seen that every forum, the 3 or 4 ministerial discussions which have been held at that point of time, there has more been an attempt to push India, saying fall in line or else you stand
to lose.
You stand to lose, and also you become a marked person, saying that you are holding back.
Ajay, also the year of reference.
Absolutely,
year
sir.
of reference
that is extremely important.
Deliberately overlooked by the developed countries. Year of reference, which probably was 88 or so.
86, sir.
So they are not looking. Just a minute, please.
One thing, I'll let him finish.
So you see, these are the main issues, and you see, India has a unique position. India is deficient, and India is not more than sufficient, rather surplus. No other developing country, most of them are deficient. So our interest is affected both ways. If we don't produce enough for us, then we are subjected to vagaries of price in the international market on the purchase side. If we produce more, then we are punished for producing more. So India has a unique position, and therefore India rightly is taking a unique position in WTO.
In WTO. Yes, Mr. Chaudhary.
Frankly, we have raised this issue before the WTO also, that in 1995 the green box subsidy was the $40 billion, and now it has increased more than 3 times. It's a $140 billion, and they are giving to their agribusiness corporations. Especially it affects the paddy and rice for both crops at international market, and it's a declining in the price only due to heavily subsidies. And in dairy sector also, we will see what will happen in the future if the UK and European Union will continue their subsidies and India will sign the European Union and India FTA. Then what will happen when European Union make a free trade agreement with US? They say no agriculture should be there. European Union oppose agriculture, but when they come with India, agriculture is the choice, because the farming community is so weak in India, and they are unable to get the proper price, and still the National Farmer Commission report is pending. Why? The decision should be taken. The proper price system should be adopted, and the farmer should get some remunerative price. It is the peak of the hour, and I am thankful to Prime Minister that he has started. Prime Minister Irrigation Scheme will make the productivity increase, and second, the soil health card will also make the
5 lakh crore रुपए लगेंगे 2000 के क्या स्कीम है वो बेकार.
Anyway, we're not talking about the scheme. Hey, Mr. Haque,
soil health improve करने के लिए productivity बढ़ाने के लिए जरूरी है.
Mr. Haque,
yes. Yeah, I have 1 or 2 things to say here. First of all, I will say that more than the international community or the WTO, our governmental policies have been defective and not supportive of the farmers in 2 ways, I'll say. For instance, whenever there was surplus of sugar, there is a ban on the export of sugar. When there is surplus of rice or wheat, there is ban on the export of sugar. And then on the other hand, if you see the import duty, systematically we have cut down the import duty to a level where you are, very prone to, get import, and then depress the internal prices.
It's cheaper to import than to buy.
Yeah, exactly. This is what I have. Second thing is that
that is obviously for a temporary period, so that our production system gets distorted, and then later on we have to pay through our resurrecting agriculture production is not as easy.
This is one. Second thing is on the question of subsidy. In fact, subsidy-wise, there are areas which is, I think I should say, WTO compatible, like subsidy on agriculture and research and education, infrastructure, market development, insurance. But we have never thought along those lines. Insurance, I think our former minister...
We have never reached even the de minimis level prescribed. We never reached
in fact, that way. So there is tremendous scope. Only thing now we are stuck saying that agriculture price support is not, is market distorting, so you should not do it.
Mr. Haque,
food security...
Mr. Haque, my question is this. If you are saying, if most of you are saying that, that there has been the policies of the government has, to a certain extent, resulted in this kind of thing.
Exactly.
How is it that during this last 10 years there has been this growth in agriculture? I mean, do you agree that there has been significant growth in agriculture sector then if you compare it with the previous 10 years or so?
Yeah.
How has it happened?
Yeah,
now, for instance, we are talking about agriculture exports, which has gone up very, very significantly in last 10 years. How has it happened?
No, agriculture exports, if you compare point to point, like 2001 and now 2012, then there is some such situation. Like what has happened is for the last 2-3 years, because of the huge stock that we had of rice and wheat, we had to export. There was no choice, because now in the local domestic market, we could not clear even through PDS.
Yes.
So this is the problem. But otherwise, if you see the overall trend, there is no such trend of rising exports.
Professor Haque, since you have been chairman CACP and you are an economist, there is another aspect of the whole phenomena. The aspect of profits. You see, how do you define growth? Just increase in production?
Yeah,
or increase in the incomes of the farmers, which is measured by the difference between the cost and the...
Would you say profit. That are you saying that there has been no increase in the income of farmers?
There are large-scale studies bringing it out that farmers' profits are squeezing.
Real incomes of the farmers are not rising.
Real incomes are getting reduced. Real incomes also have two angles.
Exactly.
Real income from the produce that he sells, and real income which he has to pay out to buy other things whose prices have been rising faster than agri. So, terms of trade have those three aspects.
Exactly.
These have not been studied. These have not been looked at closely by the government. And government has always been harping, as you rightly said, which Krishan did not reply to, that government was doing more upadesh, paying more lip service to agriculture than real assistance.
No, he will agree to that.
And then
I'm sure he will agree to that now.
Government is planning.
Please take a minute. It's a very important point. You see, when we come to economic reforms, including globalization, why is it that the Indian market within India, and particularly the market for the perishable commodities, including fruit, vegetable, fish, egg and milk, has not been opened?
Why? You tell us why.
Vested interest of the traders. I did, but because my stint, was only 13 months. I always have been pleading, including as being a Minister of State, earlier as well as later. I have been very consistent on this.
No, that is true. That is true.
Okay. Now let us get down to, if this global crash, which has already happened, and it's going to happen further according to the reports, according to studies, they are saying that it will further go down. Whatever may be the reasons why this is happening, how are we going to, Mr. Krishan Chaudhary, what are your suggestions to ensure that we will not be affected as much as some people seem to be predicting?
On import, duty should be increased, all agricultural imports, because we have a level tariff rate, and it's the last government decreased at the lower side, and in some product it became the 10% or up to 0 level. It should not be. Second thing, that we cannot compete the subsidy level from the developed world, but the first time government have taken a stand that we will not surrender our food security and we will continue our minimum support price in public distribution system. The government has taken a right stand, and strictly they have clearly message has gone at the global level, especially in the WTO and the all developed world, that government is not going to surrender. We are not going to sign this agreement for the completely. If you see the trade, it was a trade benefit agreement, not for developing countries. Any benefit for farming community or for poor people. It was nothing was there from out of this TFA.
Okay, Mr. Dua.
I think we have to be using very judiciously our MSP and the export-import regime. Both have to be used.
When you say use MSP regime judiciously, what do you mean?
It should not, merely because the international prices have fallen, we should not swing the other way and stop making any increases in the MSP. We have to look at it product-wise, and within the products, we have to look at the variety-wise as well. Certain things we definitely will need to continue to support, and we should do that irrespective of the WTO compulsions. And there are no compulsions. I stand by that fact, something which we have all along said, that we still have margin to go up even within the accepted WTO regime, apart from the pressures which we...
Yeah, the second
point is in terms of our export-import regime, the foreign trade policy. I think that gives us much more leeway than even the subsidy issue, because that policy is an yearly policy.
Right.
And within the year also, we have been coming out with ad hoc provisions and ad hoc steps, because it's agriculture being a 6-monthly, every few months we cycle, we can play with that. But I think we should be very clear that we have to protect our farmers, even if it means to some extent, because that's the livelihood. The moment you do that, or you don't do that, you would see the effect of it on the entire economy.
Okay. Mr. Haque?
Yes. I think...
2-3 suggestions how you can insulate the Indian economy, Indian agriculture and Indian farmers.
The first and most important thing, I think Mr. Sompal also said, that we need to increase the production of pulses and edible oils or oil seeds, because we are hugely dependent on import. And it is a huge kind of import.
Yes.
And this is possible by way of doing two things. One thing is technological innovations, and second is price. I mean, both are equally important. We have to improve the yield level. Our yield level, in fact, are very low of most of these commodities. And in fact, some of the ICR demonstration results also show that even by adopting the existing technology that has been tried, I think if it is adopted properly, the yield can improve. So this is one. Second thing is, you have to rationalize the subsidy regime. You have to have a right, consistent import-export policy. You have to have some kind of proper coordination between your technology policy, your price policy and import-export policy, because in many cases, you can say increase the price of a particular commodity, and for which you want to increase the production, but then your import policy is wrong. It is dumped from outside.
Right, Mr. So quickly, Mr. Shastri, wrap it up.
Very important is to have a concrete adjustment in the price composition, MSPs for these goods which we are deficient in, and that can be discussed, how much the price should be. Farmer responds only to the price signal, the best response comes. Secondly, the tariff walls that are allowed legally under the WTO regime have to be used.
Cleverly.
Not cleverly, transparently, but to the benefit of our farmers, and taking the plea that this is a matter of livelihood for us.
Right.
It's not a question of trading. Trading is a secondary phenomena for us. For us, the important, concrete, the real thing is the livelihood of the people. And third is internal market reform. And fourth is creating conditions for diversifying agriculture, including protecting the prices of other grains and other products other than rice and wheat. And rice and wheat also are protected only in 3-4 states. In Bihar, it is selling at half the price even. I mean, UP it is underselling.
Right, sir.
And lastly, just a minute.
Yes, quickly.
Land utilization, because there is a huge import of forest produce. And there are last large scale wastelands available which can produce enough forest, which can produce also timber as well as paper pulp. So these are the adjustments. So a detailed study has to be done and a strategy drawn. Indian agriculture respond to any kind of shock.
I think on that note we need to end. The fact is that there is a huge challenge before the government. It's not easy. All our panelists have given suggestions of how to control it, but it's a challenge which we will have to wait and watch how the government will stand up to. But hopefully they will be able to stand up to and protect the Indian farmers' interest. Thanks to all my guests, Mr. Krishan Chaudhary, Sompal Shastri, Ajay and Tajamul Haque. Please keep watching. We'll come back with another issue in the big picture, same time tomorrow.